Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. I say I might video these, so I like to look the part. I like to look smart. Not that I'm a poser. I was on this is not a talk, this is just about appearance for monks and nuns. I was on a plane that had some big problems, and we were stuck in somewhere like Saudi, not Saudi Arabia, it was one of them places. Anyway, when I got to England, it was in all the newspapers, and in actual fact they banned the airline after that. It was actually very dangerous. We started to take off after 3 days. But I was lucky. When I was there, they put me in a Russian hotel. So one of the air hostesses was worried about my feeding, and I said, "Oh, don't worry about my feeding. I was in a Russian hotel which fed pilots. I had enough food for 3 days just in one go, and that was just the breakfast." Anyway, when I got to England, we had a novice here who was a very sweet, very lovely person, so I'm not criticising him, very good teacher in his own right, but he's a bit out the box when it came to dress. And then I always tried to keep in public. It's not that it's you're not posing or trying to give good impression, but I always like to, in public, outside, on planes, I always try to be what I am, dress appropriate, dress appropriate, even if I'm on a plane 12, 13 hours. And when we got to England, I got to know these people I was travelling with a little bit, so they'd see. And in the end, when the plane was going to take off, they were wondering whether to fly it. Many people said, "I'm not getting on the plane unless the monk gets on." So there's an Englishman who helped me back then, because I needed a taxi. And I'm still friends with that Englishman. He actually might come here. And so I said to these Englishmen, I said, "I got to get on this plane, even if it falls out of the sky, at least it'll fall out with the people and the Buddhist monk on it." And it's the only time I had one of these medallions which people give you in Thailand, which I haven't got particular faith in. But when this plane took off, all the windows, everything, the things were moving. And I said, "If there's any power in you, let it be now." And I put it on the side of the plane, Because first time we attempted to take off, halfway up the runway, there was screaming at the back of the plane. And when you looked out the window, the petrol fuel was spraying out the end of the wings. And they had to do an emergency brake, So it shows how quite serious it was. But anyway, the point was, this has gone off, this is my nature, you see. I start with the Dhamma talk, and then there's a dyslexic mind which floats off into abstraction, not abstractions, but I go off on journeys. But so the point is, and it's important, I'm talking to monks and nuns really here, in that when they met me, this novice, he came running through a side door and he said, "Quick, come this way, Ajahn," because there's all the press outside, all the newspapers. And I said, "Oh, I want to talk to newspapers." I'll discuss with the newspaper. I'll give a press conference. And no, I didn't say that. But anyway, so when he came, he had his robe all wrapped round him. He had just come from a car, and he had big hobnail boots, his walking boots, And I noticed that the people looked at me, then they looked at they were looking at him and looking at me, and I was all kind of, dressed as I felt the Buddha would be, right? And they looked at him, and I just looked and I said, "He's our punk monk." He's our punk monk. So it's always good. Nice thing, like last week is lovely. Nyanarato, some people know, we've known each other dear as friends. So, well, I think I'm a friend. He's my friend. I don't know if he regards me as a friend. But I've been on an airplane journey with him for about, from Thailand, a long journey on him. And he gets on the plane all like this, Then at the other end, he gets off the plane all like this. And I've actually got up and, especially on a jumbo, I've been on the front of a plane on a jumbo and started to rig my robe in the space, and everybody goes. Because my sense of humour, I sort of look down and I go, inboard entertainment, there's no charge for this, because they want to know how we put on our robes. Anyway, I thought I'd say that about appearance. So it's always nice for monks and nuns to dress appropriately. Though I must say, when I was an Anagarika, I went in the supermarket in Berkhamsted with the Anagarika. We were kitchen manager. I was kitchen manager for about a long time and in charge of the larder. So when people think I just sit around as an old lazy monk, I've actually been through all what most of it through. But we were walking around the supermarket one day, and the nun was in front of me, Anagarika, and she had the socks on, leg warmers, and Anagarikas, they get a bit, must be self-conscious when you're first in white. And I remember, and I said, how, and I was in my 40, and I looked at her walking in front of me, and I thought, how we look like two people who escaped from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, except to just be Jack Nicholson and run up and shove a pill in our mouth. We looked like a couple of lunatics. It was quite something to get used to. Anyway, I'll start talking in a minute. Present awareness. Why is the present called a present? Because it's a gift. That's a good one. I've got no idea what I'm going to say. I will say something, because I believe these talks do go out in public. So I might talk into and get a bit politically incorrect. So if I get hate mail, I've told somebody, when I get politically incorrect when I talk, and if I think it's going out, I actually say on the thing, if anybody wants to send me any nasty letters, hate mail, I don't care, so don't bother wasting your time. Put me in prison, give me a fine, I don't care. And that's serious, I don't care. But I'm not going to get that politically incorrect. I'm not going to take my clothes off or anything like that. But I might get onto that a bit later, but because I say I don't know what I'm going to say. Yeah, our job is present, the gift of the present. I remember when I first came to Buddhism, I had I read a little poem, and I'd been into, this is no thing to any attainments or anything like that, but I'd been, I was aware of present awareness from before. When I was about 24, I became a yogi, and I met someone who'd been with a guru, and something clicked with me, so, I felt I knew what it was to be aware of one's awareness, empty awareness. And I remember having this little, it was like a miniature Satori moment I picked up when I first came to Buddhism, picked up a little Buddhist book and it had poems in. And then one of them said, where would I be? What would happen to me if I could see all around me, above and below at once? And just that sentence, just reading that, my mind said, pop, it was like a little Satori, and I thought, they'd just be seeing, and it wasn't like my intellectual, but it was like, actually it's like my mind, because I've got that kind of mind, sort of seeing all around, above and below at once. And I thought, it'd be total seeing, And it was like this, empty seeing, it's like empty seeing. But at that point, as I've mentioned before in another talk, it was the seeing, empty seeing, but also just the seeing and just the seen, S-C-N-E. No one there, just the seen. When we're born and all that, we're born with eyes and ears and mouth and nose and these things. And we're always, the conditioning is always go towards, we're going through, like we're going towards and towards freedom and towards enlightenment, hopefully. And we kind of design that way. Our eyes are in the front, they look forward. Our ears are pointed to the front. We feed ourselves from the front. We smell from the front. Everything is in the front. So there's, right from an early age, we've got this sense that we're going through our life, and then when we come to Buddhism, we don't realise, and then condition past and future. And we always talk about coming back to the present, but in actual fact, we're never out of the present. There is only the present, which is momentary, and the reality is there, like a hologram in the present. So we never actually leave the present. And that's what we say. When our mind goes off and we get distracted, the moment we notice it, we're back. We actually haven't been anywhere. But what's manifested is an image, a memory, or something like that. Something's come up, and then it doesn't just dissolve away. It doesn't just boom away. We cling to it, the habit to cling to it and hold it, and then we've got past and future, things like this. So that's it. That's a Dhamma talk. Finished now. Can I go? Okay, have my cup of tea now, and drink a cup of tea from the front. I made Ajahn Vimalo, he went into stitches of laughter. He's got a funny sense of humour. But he's very funny, actually. And I said to him, I made him laugh once. I said, actually, they say a snake, the reason why we don't make snakes is because it's the rawest form of us. It's just one big long intestine with an opening at either end. And then gradually through evolution, the snakes have developed. And then you get the lizard, the little arm. And then gradually the whole thing is just to keep this intestine going. And then we develop these. And I said our whole life, everything is all to get everything, to put it into this intestine. And it passes through us, And then all the other stuff comes with it. We have baby snakes, that they do the same thing. It's just ways of looking at what we are. Now, because these talks do go out, I want to mention that when I first came to Buddhism, I used to, I didn't see my family for about 7 years. I went off to Thailand. And then I went into a place at Kanchanaburi. I was with Ajahn Vimalo when that first opened, and Janarato was the second monk. There's just a few of us there. There's 5. There's myself, Janarato, there's an Israeli monk, there's an English monk. There's an English monk who was an ex-Boy Scout master, and he used to act like a Boy Scout master. Just the English, you need to be English to appreciate how it's a Boy Scout master. One time we found a cobra. There was a cobra in Wat Nana Chat under the bookshelf. I went to get something. I said, "Ooh!" I said, "It looks like a cobra under there, under the bookshelf." I wanted a piece of paper. Then, oh no, I think it's a. And then he came in, the ex-Boy Scout master, and I said, "I think there's a cobra." He went, "Oh, stand back, stand back." He immediately became the Boy Scout master. Put on his glasses. He said, stand back, get out of the way, get out of the way. I'll deal with this. We said, look, this is a cobra, they come right up on their tail and they kill you. And we were saying all this, no. And he got this stick and he started poking this stick. And this thing came out from the bookshelf and started going, he's going, we're going, don't be stupid. No, I know what I'm doing. And I thought I'd better run round because there's a back door. And what this Boy Scout master is going to do, he's going to hook this cobra out of the back door. And it was a Wampra, and someone's going to be start doing walking meditation out the back door and land up with a cobra wrapped around their neck, So, and I remember going round, running out of the office round to the front. And as I ran out, I see this cobra go through the air out of the back door, Anyway, so we were in Kanchanaburi, back to the plot. And I knew, and then suddenly, after I was there 2 years, and then I think it was 2 years. And then what happened was a person came into the monastery and they thought, I might get a bit emotional now because I tend to can get emotional. I don't find it hard to even start it. What was it? Yeah, someone came in, he had 16 Newsweeks. And I started looking at these Newsweeks, and we had no idea about the Yugoslavian war. And it was like a horror show, seeing this Yugoslavian war, what's going on in Yugoslavia, and the killing and just everything was terrible. And then I went to Bangkok, and a friend of mine was passing through, and I turned on his television, and there was the news, and it was the Yugoslavian war again, and I actually started to cry because of what was being seen on the thing. And it was actually very touching. There was a kind of a vehicle, army vehicle, with 2 people who were rescuing people. And there's an old couple come to their door. And they said, look, we can't take you because we can only take you if the war is near, if there's evidence of the war. And then just as they said that, you kind of, dum, dum, in the distance, very faint. And this man looked at the woman. There's a man and a woman in the army. And he said, I think that was a bomb or something, was it? They said, oh, yeah. They said these, quick, come. So it really touched me, that slight excuse that this old man and old woman in there. So this is, I'm coming round to why I'm going to get into what I'm into. I'll try not to keep you too long. Anyway, here's one problem. We used to sit all night. You only sit till 9:30 now, and you go, when's the talk finished? Time for my cup of tea. Time for my cocoa. So I vowed after that. I'd always, when I've been back, it's different when you're a kind of junior, we don't encourage it, and I don't look at it all the while, but I tend to keep in contact with the news. So I see the news. I don't want to be that remote from the world. And I can handle it. I might cry or something like that. I think that's off or something like that. But generally, I'm all right with that. I'm going to still sit there and be peaceful. I have my mind distracted onto other things. Buddha rupas and clay and moulds and what I'm doing now, art projects. I can go straight from a war to an art project. See what I want to get into a little bit, and it's in the world. I look outside and in the world, and it's been going on for a few years now. Psychologists found mindfulness. So every time you think, there's mindful, and then you suddenly hear, in Parliament, there's a mindful room. And many old parliamentarians, the MPs, they go in the room, they'll be mindful for a little while. And this is Buddhist, this is straight down the line, Buddhist, the Buddha, impeccable in conduct and understanding. And what does he teach first? He teaches sila. And whenever I hear him outside, it doesn't mean that everybody's, in orgies or getting drunk or falling all over the place. Though I must say, I did mention to a gentleman today, I was absolutely really touched by the drug problem in America. It's getting so bad. Some of these drugs are just killing people all the while. But I hear so much about mindfulness, and yet the sila. I never hear anybody mention sila. And if say Christian, if I've heard anything like a Christian talking about Christianity, it's always met with negative, they're just moralistic zealots, And I've heard a lot of this, and the criticism of religion. A lot of people are becoming interested in Buddhism, seems to be. And so it's not a knock on all society, but it's something that if this goes out, if this does go, people will hear this. Most of the Buddhists know it, hopefully, But we are like, you've got philosophies now, you've got postmodernism and social relativism, where you deconstruction. Postmodernism, I deconstruct. The conventionals of the world, like the world, the body and all this sort of thing, is irrelevant. It's what I think. Or what I feel mostly. They don't realise it's what I feel. Because if you take a different view, you get a lot of anger and abuse, criticism, which is actually more like how they feel because of the way they want to follow their life. And this is not a nick in criticism. Everybody can follow their life in whichever way they want. Anybody can be whatever they like. I'm got bigotry in that kind of way. I'm not homophobic. I'm not this. I'm not that. My best friend for over 40 years was gay. And my wife used to get a bit annoyed because she said he fancies you more than me, and he's so good looking. She used to quite fancy him, But so I got none of that stuff. So it's not a knock of that, but it's to do with interpretations of things. So you have this deconstruction. Ultimately, we're all quantum mechanics. We're all in quantum mechanics. We're little more than a hologram. Even the Buddha says this froth on the sea. And there's a reality where this can actually be perceived. That there's suddenly there can be the insight into that we are little more than a hologram on one level. But on the conventional level, in order to see that, to see it in here, to have an insight in here, takes conditions. We are conditioned. When a computer, someone was into computer, I was speaking to someone today. I had some nice conversations the last couple of days. I'd been after the meal in there for 2.5 hours. It might just be me shooting my mouth off, but it's quite, there's good people, meditators and that. If someone wants a computer, and I hope someone might, I'm talking to the microphone, they want a special program, you put in the right program, you get the result. When someone like I came along and go like this, and, or someone who thinks, oh, the computer's just a construct. So I just bang the keys and hopefully I'll get the result I want, And this is what's it's called. For me, it's called muddling up of levels of reality. It's taking one level of reality and trying to apply it to another. And there's a nice story. I think the Guru Ramdas talks a story about the hippies one night. And I was a hippie, so. One night, it's just the seeing through things, I've taken stuff, so the mind expanding stuff. So the next day, they get up and they clear up, and the guy says, it's your turn to do the washing up. And the other guy says, but we're all one. See, so he's done an up level, what they call an up level. So you come in with a new up level. You say, yeah, it's your turn to do the washing up. You know what I mean? And so now, say the things outside, postmodernism, things like this, it's all a construct. Everything's a construct. All that's meaningless. It's what I think I am and everything like that. But what they don't notice is that also they'll scream and be really angry at you, but they don't realise their anger is also their own personal construct. If that's the case, it can't be applied to oneself or the way I feel, because all the feelings get in the way, My first teacher, I asked him, because it was after the kind of hippie culture. I don't think this is making any sense, or, it might go out. Somebody might hear it and think, hell, that sounds sensible. I won't just do what I want to do now. I said to him about the psychedelic age and all that stuff. And he said, and it was dead on, because I've seen this, I saw this experience. I can tell experience which is so clear on once conditions change, you change. And then people can have an insight, they can realise their mind, empty, or they can realise empty mind, selfless mind. They can have a moment of that. Then they think, you get gurus think they're enlightened, and they think, so then they go abusing their students. Because they think, well, I can be mindful and aware while I'm doing all this, and I'm teaching you how to be free. But you notice when people abuse, say in religions or something like that, most gurus, they always abuse the young, beautiful 20-year-olds. They don't have affairs with the 85-year-old devotees. It's always the young. And they think, oh, how come there must be something wrong in my mind, Because I seem to always want to teach the young ones. And I said to him like that, and he said, yes. He says, on one night, they can see, to have an intuition, have an insight into anatta, and then they go out and do everything they think an anatta would like to do. And you get this. And then they wonder why they suffer. They're still suffering. It's because they've had an insight, which is very nice. It's very nice, these insights. But that ongoing wisdom is lacking. And it's the sila which creates this ongoing wisdom. Why does it create an ongoing wisdom? Because usually when people talk about mindfulness outside, they're talking about attention. And many people heard me use this thing like the safe breaker. He listens to a safe and he can get the combination because he's got incredible mindfulness. No, he's got incredible concentration and attention. But his mind is full of greed. And in actual fact, the purpose of sila is to clear the mind of unwholesome states, which is the greed, hatred, and delusion to an extent, because delusion is like a shadow on our perception. And in actual fact, we have perceptions when we perceive something. I look at I see the separate people on one level, when in actual fact you're all appearing in my mind. And it doesn't mean you don't exist. It's just that light travels, brings your image into my mind, and it turns it upside down like a camera, and then it puts all its lots of stuff, subliminal stuff on it, and then goes, that's what's out there. And then it projects it straight out there again. So I always say on retreats, go out to the side of the field and take in the whole countryside. That's actually all in your. That's actually all your mind, because it's reflected on the surface of your mind. And it is a theory of mine that when people say they have a tremendous oneness experience, and then they think, "Oh, it's God." I've seen God because everything's at one. But this is a Vimaloism. But in actual fact, what you're seeing is the surface of your own mind, like a sheet of glass. And what's lacking on outside when people talk mindfulness, they're often just talking about attention. But they don't mention the sila because they don't realise how important that is, because it's the sila. It is the sila that brings the mind, a glow to the mind, which makes the mind mirror-like. And then what does a mirror do? A mirror reflects. And if you have a philosophy behind it, like Christianity, and they've got their different words for it. I know one of my family members in the middle of grief, had a tremendous thought. She'd received great grace because she was a Christian. She had but to me, I didn't say, oh no, that's a vipassana. You had an insight. That's an insight. Your mind became so clear. That the mind becoming clear like a mirror, then reflecting conditionality. So what we're training to do is to always be on the edge of attentiveness, and then at any moment we are reflective. So we're going in that way. We contemplate things like I say to people when you go in a room, first thing notice, take note of the space. A bit like Lumpur teaches this, but I've always been a bit spacious. It's called stupidity, makes you spacious. But and it's that quality which the sila means, because there's no remorse, no regrets, and it makes a difference. Some people have got natural sila. There was some man came the other day, and he'd never drunk. He'd come up. I won't say about his upbringing. He had some very unpleasant things, but with his family. And it taught him. So he said he never took drugs, come from London, part of London, where most people have indulged at some time, older people. So, but he had a natural, and I said, well, you've just got natural sila has made you how you are. And he's interested in meditation, but it's travelled with him through his life as a natural thing. The advantage of a religious teaching is that the religious teaching, and it's explained to you why it is, and so you know what you're doing. Whereas if it's just something that's travelled with you, you can go off a bit later if you don't know. There's a reason for that. There's a psychological the mental factors are in balance, you know. It's bringing, when we're meditating, we're bringing mental factors into balance, like our computer. It takes certain, for us to see into the nature of things. It's all well and good having a philosophy that dismantles everything and says, oh, everything's mind and everything, all conventions are, you know, and all this. But what people have usually done, when it's a lot like that, it's in the head. They've learned it's good philosophy and I want to be my true self, you know, and if you disagree, I'll punch you on the nose, you know, or I'll close you down, or I'll make sure you lose your job. And I've heard a lot of people who have had very unpleasant, their lives made very unpleasant because of people holding on to their opinions, which are very harder than rock. You know, they say the material world, it's all construct. But their opinions are like iron sometimes, you know. So I wish in the outside world people started with but then again, you start mentioning Sila. You know, you've got to be able to really explain it. Why? We are conditioned, you have to be able to, in order to see conditionality and to see that things are illusionary, there are illusionary aspects. This takes the manipulation of conditions on the conventional level. You have to work with the conventional level in order to see beyond the conventional level. If you just think, you read a book, oh, that's beyond the conditional level, you're usually still you're still in the conditional level. And you're acting according to that. There's not really the knowledge, deeper knowledge. That's why the Buddha's impeccable in conduct and understanding. Then when someone's like that, or like Ajahn Chah, I mean, his vinaya was impeccable, totally impeccable. But, you know, I'm fortunate, as I say, to meet him. As free as a bird. Free as a bird, no regrets, no nothing, you know. I think Ajahn Vimalo told me once that Mahasi Sayadaw came to Chithurst, and he said it's quite interesting to look into someone's eyes, looked into Mahasi Sayadaw's eyes and realised, oh, there's no one there. There's no one there. But it takes what we train in, is presence. When people first come into monasteries, it can be a bit difficult. You know, it takes us a long time to think, because we have old habits, and even 30, well, I've been over 30 years, I've been a meditator over 40 years. It takes years and years. I was a particularly hard case, so I had to be years and years. Take everybody else a lot quicker than me, I tell you. I'm from Luton. I mean, it's definitely... I remember Ajahn Pasano saying to me once in Thailand, he said, I have to meditate, he said, and I really have to get free in this life, he said, because, do you think about it? He said, I was born as a hockey player in Canada. He said, that's, you know, so I have to grab the chance where I got it. No telling where I'll land next time. No telling. Take the advantage. Take the advantage of the conditions. And when we come in, if we're patient, we just have to let the old stuff, keep our sila, and let some of these old habits, deep psychological urges and surges, which usually they come up, I always say they're like spots that come up and go, you know, or sometimes people first come in, some people breeze into a monastery and breeze it. Other people have a difficult time. We're all unique. Some people have like a difficult time. It's like a volcano comes up. Vesuvius, an internal Vesuvius. Ajahn Vimalo said Holocaust. It's the whole thing of the Holocaust. The total burning. He used to use some good expressions like this, the total burning. If you remember Ajahn Vimalo's old talk, I want down off this cross. The total burning, that's where the term Holocaust comes from. For the Buddhist and also people in spiritual work, and I know Christians and what have you. Ajahn Vimalo quoted this years ago from T.S. Eliot. I think it's T.S. Eliot. He said, I can't know the words, I have to think. The contemplation of the intersection between time and the timeless is the occupation of the saint. I always say, the intersection between time and timelessness is not only for the saint, but it's for all people who are into spiritual practice. Because their mind is between time and the intersection between time, timelessness. That in time, contemplating timelessness, but it's being contemplated with a silent, reflective mind, not with the intellect. And the silent, reflective mind takes sila, samadhi, panya. Someone might say, right, what about black magic that do really nasty things, like Aleister Crowley and all these people? Look at the mess they get in, usually. Do you want to be an Aleister Crowley, a black magician? Do you want to go the dark side of the Force? Do you want to be a Darth Vader or an Obi-Wan Kenobi? My grandson used to call me Grandad Yoda from Star Wars. He's always Grandad Yoda. He said, I don't like your robes very much. Someone said he didn't like the robes. When my son died, he said, now Dad's dead, you could have his clothes. I don't like the robes. I said, he was a bit bigger than me. So what else was there? Nothing. That's about it, really. I did feel I don't know if these are tapes, but they go out and people listen. It's so important. Sila is so important. And I know someone now who spiritual person who feels he's lost everything. Spiritually, he feels he's lost everything. He's been plunged into everything has deserted him spiritually. So he feels like a dead zone inside because he felt he broke sila, and broke big sila. But in actual fact, a lot of it is, he must probably listen to this, and if he does, a lot of it is his own mind. He's got a self-judging mind and an analytical mind, which is actually building his own hell, really. And now he says, if I was a monk, again, he said, I wouldn't teach anything, just sila. And I can tell some stories. I tell you one story of a friend who went to America and then I'm finished. And it was back in the late 60s, around that time. And he was very free and breezy. Wow. Yeah. And he had this very beautiful girlfriend called Nikki. And she was a little artist. She used to embroider very beautiful little embroideries of sunrises. But they were all small. And she would always be with her embroidery. She was very beautiful. Everybody thought she was very beautiful. And she had she had a face like a Greek sculptor. And being an artist, I can see beauty in men and women. And it doesn't mean I'm binomial. What is it? Binomial? What is that? It doesn't mean I'm bi or anything like that. I could just appreciate beauty in lots of things. And I can also see dukkha in lots of things. When people say how beautiful the forest is, I said, how beautiful the forest is. I did a retreat in Italy, and I said, it's incredibly beautiful. I'm an arty-farty type, so I see all colours and lichen and all this sort of thing. I said, but if you look close, the little insects are trying to eat the littler insects. The creepers are going around the trees. There's whole trees in Sri Lanka where the creepers have gone round the tree and the tree has died. And all you have now is this great lump of creeper going up into the sky. People come and say, "How? What a tree of them?" I say, they are fossilised arahants. They're in the tree, all the thing has grown round them. There's sculptures of the Jain saint, Mahavira, And he's standing naked like there's a little creep around his legs. Have you ever seen these sculptures? Oh, I do. Anyway, I've seen them. What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying then. Never mind. Huh? Nikki. Yeah, Nikki. And this friend of mine, and of course he was always breezy and he was always talking to beautiful ladies and all this sort of thing. And I said, you know, one day Nikki will... And he said, and I was a Buddhist by then. Well, I was a yogi, hatha yoga fanatic. And he said, well, you know, if Nikki, you know, I'm cool. all this. I said, I'm cool if Nikki, I'm all right. Anyway, they went off to Ibiza for their holiday. To stay in Ibiza for a friend. Then suddenly there's a knock on my flat door and this guy comes in. He looked quite distressed. And he was a pretty cool guy. But he actually sat down and he started crying. You know. And I said, what's happened? He said, well, we were in Ibiza and Nikki went out and she bumped into a guy and she wasn't, you know, someone who was just going to go off with anybody, anything like that. And he said it was love at first sight. They just, like that. You know, and they most probably perhaps still live together and got grandchildren and everything. Nikki's most probably 77 now. Don't look so Greek. He said, I never believed it would affect me like that. I just looked at him, I said, conditions change, we change. You know, and he was a perfect example of that, you know, someone who's had it just turn round, you know, someone thinks you can get away with something. You don't get away with anything. Anyhow, past. I should start a communist. I saw someone last Christmas, you know, like the monks. No, I'm going to go on a little bit, 5 minutes. I promise I'll stop after 5. I try and keep my talks at about 40 minutes, you know. But I went to, people know that I go to my family every Christmas, in actual fact, just to meet my daughter. My daughter's 52. She's a horsewoman, professional, dancing horses, you know, what they call it, dressage. She's always seen me little films of her on another horse. Got it to do this. I want to see her train one to do the cooking or something. But yeah, and then the other Christmas, it doesn't I go off and wear funny hats and blow things and, you know, go mad. My family are pretty conservative. I actually took Winita home for Christmas one time and they loved him. My family loved him. And I said, don't tell him you want to come next Christmas. They said, no, he can come next Christmas. No, I want a bigger present next Christmas. If you ask him what he wants, he'll tell you. But no, they loved him. But this one year, the other year, we went to a place where my daughter's friend took her horse, because my daughter didn't have a horse. She's got one now again. She's always had a horse all her life. And what it was, they hired some big chalets in a big place, which is a big livery with horses and things like that, so people can take their horses there. And it was Christmas, and I had a chalet, and they got little chalets and all that. So it's all very, you know, together. I don't lose it particularly. And but at one point, because her friend was having trouble with this horse, and Sasha's, even I don't say it's because of my daughter, but she's been a professional horsewoman all her life. You know, White City with the show jumpers and all this sort of stuff. So she tries to teach this one. But anyway, the man there who owns the whole place was trainer, and he trained circus horses as well. And they've got a big arena, all wooden, 8 foot high. He said sometimes he has to have a ladder on the inside just in case it's a big wild stallion, then he can jump out over the wall. So we went and we were on a platform around the outside, you know. I watched him train this girl, not the girl, but the horse. And he was saying how to be with a horse. And it was a very beautiful thing to watch. And we watched for about an hour. And this horse, which didn't know what it was doing, he said, you have to train it to think for itself, has to realise. He said, people jump on a horse, they kick it to death, and then they come home in the evening and say, I had a great ride today. And then they wonder why the horse don't want to go out the next day, because you've actually pummeled the horse. You know, he said, when with a horse, by the time he's finished training, he said, these race horses, they don't whip them. You think they're whipping them, or he said no. And he said, a horse, you should be able to just touch parts of it or just do something because it's learnt itself. And I watched this horse, and it started, and first it kind of tried to run up the side. Then he went, no, no. And then he did it all without whipping it or touching it. And then he had the horse just going around. Then he went, and it went the other way. And gradually, over an hour, he bought this horse to do everything he wanted. He said, when it does this, you do this. And then he did something. He said, no, if you do this, then later on, you've only got to touch its ear in that way, and it will do the same responses. He said, and he was saying about the female horses are much better. They're much quicker at clicking on what they need to do a peaceful life. And it was lovely to watch him. And at the end, even the horse was here, and the head was here, and the horse kind of just looked like that. And he went, no, there's nothing over there to look at. And the horse just went and waited for him to stop talking. And then he leaned on it, and the horse leaned on him. And it was remarkable. I mean, I'd say my daughter can do this sort of stuff. And she said it's interesting to watch another guy, a goaded circus horses. But the funny thing is, at the end of it, and I don't mean this as any insult or anything personal for anagarikas or novices or monks. But after, because I couldn't resist, he went like that, and we did that, and I said, that's how we train novices in a monastery. And all of us, we train ourselves in this way. I said, because at first you come in there, you want to be in there. Well, a horse don't particularly, it wants its food, but you want to be in the monastery. Everything's telling you to get in the monastery, and then you get in, you think, hang on, how do I get out of here for a day? Oh, it's the first time that's happened. This is on film. Oh dear, swell myself up, do my tie up. And it was quite funny. I said, that's how. And I said, it is. It's like being in the monastery. First you try and run up the wall, but you realise that don't work. It's better just to plod around. Then they say, do this, and then you get your things you have to do during the day, so then you go and do that. They said, no, don't do that. And be in at 7:30, okay. Now, someone would say it's been institutionalised, but it isn't being institutionalised if you're learning to be mindful and you're in a structure. It's institutionalised if you go to a place and they just plonk you in like an old people's home. Then it's different. Then you fight back. Like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You become disruptive. Someone said they met me and said, you remind me of Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Bit out of the box. Bit wrong. And he's better looking than me, I think, when he was young. He's about 90 now. So it was quite funny to watch this man with this horse. I said, that's how we train ourselves. And then we do it. You've got this duty to do that duty, right? I go and do that. I do this. And I watch my mind. I just watch. And you're like this young horse. And this young horse was on. And then the girl went to take him. He said, no, just you get in front. Go in front. And and this horse is obeying, But as soon as it got near her, it started... Because it wasn't that it was thinking I'll take advantage of her. It's just it hasn't learned from her what's expected of it. And it doesn't mean you're making the horse a slave to you. Because horses, my daughter just got a horse. She said she could tell when she got on this horse that the horse loves her. And she loved the horse. She'd gone to a lot of trouble getting this horse. So she's been all over the place, Denmark and everything, to get the horse she wants, and she's got this horse she's set her mind on, a 2-year-old. And you can tell, she sent a little film, you can tell that this horse actually enjoys doing what it's doing. She just touches it and it's a beautiful horse. I think the Buddha talks of the horse, doesn't he, training the horse. I think Joseph Goldstein gives a thing like, first in meditation, really, give a horse a big pasture. If you restrict too much, you've got to be gentle. You whip it and dig your spurs in. But if you do it right, the horse does what you want. And we're the same. With Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Finish.